Trump is indeed saying, he had a news conference the other day, that he would potentially like to buy Greenland. Greenland is owned by Denmark, and it's like one of their territories. And he's saying, well, we want it. And then he got asked, well, like it's got a bunch of natural resources that are amazing and now accessible thanks to some of the global warming. It's not just completely covered by the Arctic. So we're interested because we don't have as much natural resources as China does. They've got way more than we do. So we're eyeballing, Greenland is like, well, that could be quite helpful. And Trump proposed this. And then he was asked at that presser, like, would you, and he also wants to reclaim the Panama Canal, which,
Correct.
Okay, we gave it to Panama under Jimmy Carter. It's no longer ours, but he's saying, well, we're taking it back. This is bullshit. You're charging us too much to go through it, and we want it. He's also saying we're going to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. He's saber rattling about making Canada a state. I don't think that one's real, but I think the other ones are real. So he got asked on the Panama Canal and Greenland whether he would use military or economic might to make it happen. Would you rule that out right now, Mr. President? And he said, no, I won't rule it out. Take a listen.
Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you
we need them for economic security.
Well, do we want Greenland? I mean, I see the natural resource. They're NATO country. I'm not sure we can just go in there and get them.
Do we want Italy? I mean, you can want a lot of
things. We do. Yes, that we do want.
No, you can't just take Greenland. You can't buy Greenland. You can't take the Panama Canal back from the Panamanians. I mean, there was a debate. There was actually a really interesting debate, and viewers, listeners should go check this out. In the 1970s, amongst conservatives, actually, about the situation in Panama, and there's a very famous debate between Ronald Reagan and William F. Buckley. And Ronald Reagan said we should retain control of the canal because we built it. Actually, the French started building it. We finished building it. And William F. Buckley said it's not a conservative position. We should give it back to the Panamanians, which we did under certain conditions when it turned over to full control in 1999. And the Panamanians have reacted to this recently saying, no, we're absolutely not. And look, the thing about Trump is he shoots from the hip and he says things that sometimes the facts need to catch up with him. This idea that he said with the Panama Canal, he's like, our ships are charged more to go through. That's not true. And that it has become more expensive, of course, because the water levels have been lower and it costs more and it's slower to get ships through. So they've been raising prices. But that kind of thing is just the kind of natural market of these things. I thought he was kidding about Greenland. And the more that I've watched this, he's like, well, we need it for national security and we need it for economic security, which I have to say is just completely bonkers. And I don't think this will go anywhere, but it is totally insane to say that we want to become like a local imperial power in the next 4 years. Like, what? Seriously?
It's surprising. Some of the rhetoric at the conference didn't sound exactly isolationist, as much as I loved his, you're going to F off Hamas. I better get those hostages back before the inauguration.
Comment. Loved it.
It's a little like, well, what, or what? Because most MAGA people do not want to get involved in World War III. So there was that. Then there was, I kind of do want Greenland, and if I have to potentially involve the military, I'm not going to rule it out. And same for Panama, and maybe Canada. We'll have to see. No, I'm joking. He wasn't quite that bad, but I do wonder because he sent Don Jr. and Charlie Kirk and others on Trump Force One to Greenland, and then Trump called in. Here's a little soundbite of that visit. Take a look. Take a listen.
As tourists, seeing it looks like an incredible place. We've been talking about going for a while. I was really excited to be here. Awesome country. The scenery coming in was just spectacular. So just very excited to be here. Thank you. Trump. He says hello. Okay. We were talking to him yesterday, so he says hello to everyone in Greenland.
Trump tweeted out, "Make Greenland great again." And he called in when Don Jr. was at a restaurant and he spoke with the people. And Trump says, Greenland, I hear, is very MAGA. I don't know if Greenland is MAGA. Can we start with that? I don't want to be adopting another California or Oregon.
I
don't know if Greenland is particularly MAGA, and I don't suspect that statehood is actually in the cards here. But there are some legitimate foreign policy and economic issues here. I mean, China and Russia both have a lot of interests in the Arctic region. China has a lot of cutters and can get into the ice and can go look for stuff. And there's been like essentially this competition to see who can get out there and stake claim to as much space as possible, or at least like kind of clog up the routes so that it's difficult for the United States to have access. And the United States is interested in having access to a bunch of rare earth metals that you can kind of only get in places like China and Pakistan or India, Pakistan actually. And the fact that some of this stuff happens to be in Iceland as well is of unique interest to the United States. So if what Trump is doing here, and I actually purchased a copy of Art of the Deal in the last 24 hours and have been going through it to try and understand.
10 years later.
To try and understand. Listen, I'm a little late, but I mean, there's maybe a little game
Better late than never.
Got to understand that ghostwriter.
Trump seems... Listen, you could have a ghostwriter and still have particular ideas, and he's running the playbook. I mean, these are grandiose, kind of over the top statements. Oh, we're gonna annex them. I won't rule those other things out. But if what you really want is a strategic partnership to the exclusion of the Chinese and the Russians, and you want to build up kind of public concern and interest in this issue, you can try to go about this strategically behind closed doors and be very diplomatic. And it won't even be below the fold in the New York Times. Right now, everyone is talking about Trump's interest in Iceland or Greenland. Excuse me. It's easy to confuse the two because of the silly way that they've named them.
Yes.
And the fact that we are talking about it at this point, and that it's not just him insisting, I want to control it, and if I don't get it, I'm going to start to put tariffs on Norway. He's also saying we're open to other things, and he's sending his envoys, and the envoys are having more strategic, substantive conversations. And the hope here is clearly to try and get some sort of strategic deal. I mean, Trump has been talking about this since 2018, 2019. And as soon as he gets back to the White House, or at least within striking distance of being in the White House again, he's talking about it again. This is a serious issue for him. And similarly with Panama.
The King of Denmark, was it the King of Denmark or the Prime? Anyway, it was the Prime Minister. The King of Denmark suddenly added Greenland to the crest over there as like a middle finger to Trump. Meanwhile, I was just in Denmark. I was there in June. And let me tell you, one of the big things they're proud about their king is that he rides his little bicycle with his basket in the front to work. I'm like, I'm not intimidated.
Like the fact that there's a king in Denmark and in Sweden and in Norway is unbelievably hilarious because they don't do anything and no one cares. But I just want to say that it was interesting to come on the show today and find out that my partner in the fifth column, Kmele Foster, has completely lost his fucking mind. Because
I'm saying that there are legitimate issues. There's the searches.
Imperialist Kmele?
Let me say this.
It's not imperialism.
As a sort of moderate student of the Cold War, the way that you do this is not threatening to take people over or buy them. And they say, no, what is happening in Iceland, not Greenland?
Let me write that down.
If you try, this is the art of Moynihan's deal.
Military.
Stop threatening to invade people if you want to have a coalition with them.
No one said invade.
Playing with your name on the side of it, Moynihan.
They talk about military pressure. In fairness, we don't know what that means. Here's John Fetterman. John Fetterman and Kmele could be a joint ticket running on the independent side next time. I don't know, but they're sounding an awful lot alike. Take a listen.
A lot of freakouts, and of course I would never support taking it by force. But I do think it's a responsible conversation if they were open to acquiring it and whether just buying it outright. I mean, if anyone think that's bonkers, it's like, well, remember the Louisiana purchase? Oh, I think Alaska was a great deal too. $50 million, I think it was. It was referred to as Seward's Folly, and now that was Alaska now. So I mean, open to having all kinds of conversations. He hasn't even taken office in 2 weeks. And, we really need to pace ourselves if we're going to freak out over every last tweet or every last conversation or press conference.
But Moynihan's against Alaska. He wishes we didn't have that state either.
I mean, it's a slightly different situation than Louisiana Purchase.
We were talking
Greenland,
about Greenland,
which is not contiguous with America. But we have a military base in Iceland, in Keflavik, because we kind of talked to the Icelanders, and they were like, "Okay, what do we get out of this?" And it was just a deal. We didn't say we're going to invade you, or unless you give us access to your hot springs.
He hasn't said that exactly. And again,
he's just implied
I'm just saying, like, China is spending a tremendous amount of money in Africa and South America, Red China, and they're trying their very best to have influence there. They have not private companies, but Chinese-owned or linked companies who have some interest in the Panama Canal, or at least in the surrounding area. To the extent that the United States is expressing concerns about this stuff in formal ways and in grandiose circus-like theatrical ways is probably not a bad thing on net. And as strange as it is to have to acknowledge, if the end result of Trump saying what seemed like completely ridiculous things about acquiring or annexing some other country is that we do end up with a strategic partnership of some kind that is to the advantage of the United States and to the disadvantage of our international adversaries, that's kind of a good thing.
It's the first rule they teach you when you take negotiations in law school. The first rule, you ask for way more than you want to settle for. You know, if you need to settle the case for $1 million, you do not go in there and say, I want $1 million or $1.2 million. You go in there and say, I want $4 million, and then I'll make this case go away. And you negotiate down.
That's you in the back.
It could be that international relations are a little bit different than a two-sided legal dispute.
Well, is that true for Trump? I'm not really believing that. Hold on. Do we have the exact quote? I want to read you the exact Trump quote because he did not say invade. I think we should be
no.
careful.
He said he wouldn't rule it out. Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah. The question was, okay, asked by a reporter if he could assure world leaders that his rhetoric about the Panama Canal and Greenland would not amount to, quote, military or economic coercion. So, okay, military coercion. Once he takes office, Trump responded with a simple no. He said, we need them for economic security. Quote, I'm not going to commit to that. No, it might be that you'll have to do something. Look, that Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China, and they've abused it. They've abused that gift. Giving the Panama Canal to Panama was a very big mistake. So he focused mostly on Panama, but he said he would not reassure that he is not prepared to use military or economic coercion with respect to Greenland. You know how much my family and I love our dogs. Yes, even Strudwick. He was so sweet on our vacation. I can't imagine life without them. These guys have a great life, but some dogs are not so lucky. And this is why I'm so glad to tell you about Delta Rescue, the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They have rescued thousands of dogs, plus cats and horses too. They provide all the animals with shelter and safety, and most of all, with love. And they've been doing it for more than 45 years now. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions, and giving can bring tax benefits to you too. Speak with your estate planner about how you can grow your estate while helping animals in need. And check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more. We love our Thunder and Strudwick, but would like for other dogs who need love to find it too. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.